House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has announced he is directing multiple House committees to open an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. The Speaker said allegations the president profited off of his son's business dealings are credible.
This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well.
Conservative lawmakers have been calling on McCarthy to launch this. The White House is calling it extreme politics at its worst and say House Republicans haven't turned up any evidence of wrongdoing. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sat down for an interview with CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell. We'll bring you part of that conversation later. But first, we begin with Speaker McCarthy's announcement of a Biden impeachment inquiry. Earlier, I spoke with Texas Republican Congressman Chip Roy. Congressman Chip Roy joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. I first want to start off by getting your reaction to Speaker McCarthy's announcement today that he is directing an impeachment inquiry against President Biden. Do you think that's warranted, and why now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's been, frankly, long overdue. But, you know, we've had to allow the Oversight Committee and Judiciary Committee to go about doing their work. Jamie Comer and his staff have done a phenomenal job, frankly, without the backing of a Department of Justice, using the tools at the disposal of the Department of Justice that they have. And we've been able to go uncover a whole lot of troubling facts. And I think the American people have seen that. My friend Dan Bishop was just talking about stuff that we've been looking at and concerns about FARA violations, foreign corrupt practices violations. These are real concerns when we look at the money that's flowed from foreign governments to the son of a vice president turned president. So I think we've got more than ample evidence to look at that's troubling to go forward and pursue an impeachment inquiry.
How do you counter the White House, though, which says after 9 months of investigations, there is no evidence of wrongdoing?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say if I were them, too, to try to avoid the actual problem. But the American people are looking at the facts, and they've got the same concerns that we have here as their representatives, that there have been blatant violations, that this is potentially the most corruption that we have seen at the highest levels of government in the White House in perhaps our history in terms of the dollars flowing to the family of a president. From foreign countries, the clear conflicts of interest, looking at Burisma, looking at what we're seeing with respect to Ukraine and Hunter's involvement there. These are more than troubling. And to pursue an impeachment inquiry, just so everybody understands, is to elevate it to the level to be able to use the full tools at our disposal to go seek the truth. We've not been able to go dive into the bank accounts of any member of the Biden family. I suspect they don't want that to happen. Don't you?
But even though you find some of this troubling, what specific evidence do you have that rises to the level of an impeachable offense?
Well, what we're talking about here is the flow of dollars from foreign governments through and to the son of the former vice president turned president. What we have is the fact that we had whistleblowers producing evidence directly contradicting the president, that he had no knowledge of all this, that it wasn't connected to Hunter's business associates. What we have is testimony that we now learn, and we've seen the emails with the pseudonyms that we'd like to get a little bit more information on. But again, this is all without diving into the bank accounts and going into the information that we're going to need to see. And so I suspect that the president and Hunter have no desire for us to see where the dollars have flowed. That's what I think they're concerned about, and that's why I think we need an impeachment inquiry to go seek the truth. All we want to do is seek truth wherever it may lead.
So since you are on the Judiciary Committee, which is one of the panels investigating, what more do you expect your committee to do with this new charge?
Well, now we'll look between the Oversight Committee, which has been, of course, leading the investigation, coupled with the Judiciary Committee with respect to impeachment inquiry. We will now go look and take this up and pursue what we need to get subpoenas, to get the right information so that we can know the truth. That's it. I mean, look, I'm a former federal prosecutor. That's what you do. Once you've got some reasonable suspicion, once you've got some basis, you go pursue it. You go do investigations, and you go figure out where the facts lead, and then you decide whether you've got something that's indictable and that you can then go prosecute. So that's all this is about. Again, if there's nothing to worry here, what are they afraid of? What are they afraid of?
What is your timetable?
Well, I think given the news today that the Speaker is directing an impeachment inquiry, I would expect that the committees would move with expedition immediately this week to pursue the facts wherever they may lead.
On the House floor a short time ago, Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz had this to say about the inquiry. Take a listen.
Speaker McCarthy endorsed an impeachment inquiry. This is a baby step following weeks of pressure from House conservatives to do more. We must move faster.
I know you're anxious to move forward, but do you agree with him?
Well, I mean, clearly the press and the Biden administration and the White House don't see it as just a baby step because they don't want people to see where the dollars have flowed from foreign countries through Hunter to the president.
You also mentioned the issue of government funding. I want to ask you about that as well. You just wrapped up a press conference with the House Freedom Caucus. You and several of your fellow caucus members have said that you will not support a continuing resolution, but clearly it doesn't seem plausible that either chamber is going to be able to move through all of the appropriations bills in time. Is it worth risking a government shutdown?
Well, what our duty is as members of Congress is to stand athwart an executive branch enormously out of its lane and conducting itself in a tyrannical way, undermining the freedoms, liberties, and the well-being and the general welfare of the American people. That's our job. So if the president and if Chuck Schumer want to shut the government down rather than funding the appropriate level of government at the appropriate spending level, doing what it's supposed to do, that's on them. Our job is to do the right thing. We weren't sent here to rubber stamp a continuing resolution at the 2023 spending levels at almost $1.7 trillion that is funding an out-of-control government, a weaponized Department of Justice, wide open borders that are harming directly the people that I represent in Texas, where people are dying. Little girls and little boys are dying. If I have to sit down next to another mom who loses a child from fentanyl poisoning, then that is something that would be on me if I fund that. That is why no Republican, particularly no Texas Republican, should vote to fund a government at war with the people of Texas. That is what this is about. Nothing more, nothing less. We have a voting card and we should use it.
But where do you put the chances of a shutdown given your position?
Well, we will be there ready to fund an appropriate government doing its constitutional duty at the right levels to not, basically make our kids and grandkids subject to debt going forward for, generation after generation. We're going to do our job. If they don't want to do their job, then they can own it. But that's the very important point here. If you vote for a continuing resolution at 2023 levels, funding this weaponized government, this open borders, this woke Department of Defense, then you own it. You own every ounce of it. So our job is to change it. That's how you use the power of the purse.
But I understand your position on funding levels, but whether you're talking about the continuing resolution or some of these appropriations bills, aren't you, and by you I mean House Republicans, going back on your word in terms of that debt limit deal that was secured this spring? And how do you justify that?
Well, first of all, the debt deal was about the debt. The fact is, that doesn't lock you in as to saying you need to spend at that level. Second of all, I didn't cut that deal. It was a deal that shouldn't have been cut. So what we're standing up right now and saying is, do our job. Don't fund an out-of-control government. I mean, in all seriousness, like, in what world is it okay for me to vote to fund a government that is doing what they're doing to Texas right now? I know you say you understand my position. I've heard that from lots of people in the media. But we've got 7,000 people coming across the border yesterday. We've got 73,000 dead Americans from fentanyl poisoning. We had 856 migrants who died along the southern border last year. I've had numerous sessions with moms just over August who lost their children to fentanyl poisoning. How many little girls have to get sold into the sex trafficking trade? Why should I fund that? The answer is I shouldn't. That's why we were given the power of the purse by the founding fathers. We should stand up at this building against the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue and say, no, you don't get to do that. We have a voice here, and that's what this is about. It's not about arbitrary decisions about, oh, there's going to be a shutdown. This government shut down the biggest economy in the history of the world. They shut it down 2 years ago, killing jobs, putting our kids in the corners, forcing masks on them. And we're going to get worried about, oh, we might have the government shut down for a week or two. How about we do our job? Fund our defense, fund our security, fund our sovereignty, and then get the hell out of the way of the American people so they can live.
All right, Congressman Chip Roy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Nicole.